bags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it is finally time for my review of the debut album from San Holo, Album 1. Sander van Dijk, aka San Holo, is a Dutch DJ and producer most often associated with the future bass subgenre, though he definitely has seen some crossover with fans of Yellow Claw's Amsterdam trap movement. San Holo has gained a pretty massive following through the last few years thanks to a slew of viral singles and remixes that he released, including We Rise, Fly, and Light, and also his remixes of The Next Episode and Lose Yourself. Though one of those in particular, Light, absolutely skyrocketed San Holo's popularity. I swear I cannot go into a department store without hearing that song on the radio. Rather unconventionally though, I actually didn't find San Holo through any of these viral tracks, but rather the Donkey Kong remix that he did, which someone had posted on the Monstercat subreddit. I enjoyed playing Donkey Kong Country a lot as a kid, and I thought San Holo's take on that game's theme was really unique and refreshing, and definitely enough to keep me following his stuff. Though I didn't really fully jump on the San Holo hype train until after he released his Victory EP through Monstercat, an EP that was extremely experimental for him at the time, featuring some of the most crazy off-the-wall bass music tunes I had the pleasure of listening to in 2015, like the heavy hitter Shrooms, actually done in 6/8, which was extremely odd at the time and still really is today. Though my interest in Sander's music probably peaked around the release of the New Sky EP, which I enjoyed quite a bit and rated very highly in my review. Beyond that, I can't honestly say I've had all that much desire to follow his music through these last couple years. I've definitely shifted my focus a bit to some other up-and-comers that have come in San Holo's wake on his label BITBIRD, notably Drulu and the Nicholas, and maybe a little bit of Tasca Black here and there. Though I will say I do go back to some of San Holo's early tunes fairly frequently, just if I want to hear some ear candy melodies with a fairly unique approach. Now, when I found out that Sander was working on an album, I knew I was going to be reviewing it, so I kind of shut down completely and avoided all spoilers I possibly could as to what he was going to bring forth with the album. In a way, I am kind of glad I chose to go this route because my first few times listening through this album were definitely pretty unique experiences, and I wouldn't really trade that for anything. I'll say outright that this album is really refreshing in the current landscape of EDM, and the direction for the most part that Sander took on this album genuinely did surprise me. On another hand though, after watching the Album 1 documentary, I will say I do kind of regret not keeping up with this album's creation as it was happening, as it seems that the people who followed Sander through this journey ended up with an album that I guess has more of a special place in their heart than the album I ended up listening to. Not to say that I thought this album was bad by any stretch, but I just think part of the experience of Album 1 is kind of seeing the process of the creation of this project. For all those uninformed who have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, Album 1 was created in its majority over the span of a few months in an Airbnb that San Holo rented out in Los Angeles. Sander had different guests ranging from Caspian to Bipolar Sunshine literally come to the Airbnb and write and record their parts while they were there, all in this very quick, raw, rustic kind of way. And the album documentary is definitely worth checking out just for that reason. I mean, there's something really amusing in watching the guitarist from Caspian lay down his riffs in some random kitchen. While we're on the topic of rawness though, that's probably the best word to describe the essence of what Album 1 is, because truthfully, this album contains some of the most raw and organic dance music I've ever heard. And I use the term dance music lightly because though this music might be largely electronic and be meant for dancing, it kind of flies in the face of everything that EDM stands for. While electronic dance music is traditionally very crisp, clean-cut, and formulaic, this album, to put it bluntly, is not that. Like, forget post-EDM, this album is like anti-EDM. Though I would probably say that this album fits better under the post-EDM umbrella than really any other album that I've heard before. While I've generally seen that term used to describe artists that used to produce electronic dance music but now are kind of doing their own thing and making indie music, artists like Eden, Crywolf, Underscores, I think the term fits much better in use with this album because it kind of takes the EDM formula and flips it on its head. Like, I honestly don't know what else to call this album, because while some songs are inspired by future bass and some songs are inspired by commercial house, let's take Forever Free for example, you wouldn't really call it a house song. On album 1, Sander takes these EDM formulas and subs in the super saws for electric guitars, the synth basses for real basses. I definitely heard some natural clapping throughout the album, and the vocals sound pretty raw too. And if that wasn't enough, numerous times across the album, Sander purposefully destroys the music. And he does this through a number of different techniques, whether it be running a track through a tape deck so that it sounds a little bit more warbly, or by slowing a sample down to the point where it just sounds repulsive. So yeah, I guess you could say that this album is pretty much unmatched in the way of its sonic direction, at least for this genre. I mean, I think the only person who's really come this close to executing this sound successfully is really Pierce Fulton. I can comfortably say that I didn't have any problems with Sander's sonic direction on this album, but it's the execution of it where this album fell a little bit flat for me. Unfortunately, with Sander mimicking these EDM formulas, it does have a bit of a downside, and I think most of that comes in the form of some pretty crazy repetition. I hate to use Forever Free as an example because it certainly wasn't my least favorite song in the album, but that song is probably 2 minutes longer than it needs to be. Like, the drops are so unbelievably long, and it's kind of just the same vocal chop melody over and over and over again for like a minute and a half. Songs like Lift Me From the Ground and Show Me and Voices in My Head, for example, feature these short little sticky melodies that kind of get into your head, but I don't think are quite as memorable as a lot of San Holo's early melodies, but don't really show all that much progression or variation throughout the track's running lengths, and I feel like this kind of style warrants that. Plus, the instrumental makeup across most of the songs in this album tends to be pretty similar, which makes it very difficult for me as a listener to note a lot of these songs as very unique or memorable in the context of this album, but that does make songs like Everything Matters and Love and Surface really stick out to me because they break the formula a little bit more. I can also say that I really enjoyed songs like Forever Free and Brighter Days, which is debatably my favorite song on this album because of how bright and bouncy and fun they are. Brighter Days in particular made me feel some emotions that I really wish would have carried across more of the album. And even like Lift Me From the Ground, there are a lot of things I enjoy about it. Though of course it can feel a little bit repetitive at times, I do feel like the song calls back to San Holo's signature sound more than any other song on this entire album. In particular, I think this song has some references to Light. Overall, I'd say the positives certainly outweigh the negatives on this album. While I definitely wouldn't say album 1 is the most thrilling electronic album that's released this year, it does go for a specific sonic sound that I feel like should be appreciated and applauded. I wouldn't really say this album is for me in all aspects. This definitely isn't the type of project that I can just pick up and listen to anytime that I want, but if you can, for what it's worth, I'm really glad. For album 1, I am feeling a strong 7 to a light 7.5 out of 10. If you guys haven't listened to this album yet for yourselves, I would strongly suggest at least giving it a spin. As always, I have the Spotify link down in the description below. If you enjoyed the review, make sure to like and subscribe. You might just make my day if you do. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. Hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll catch you later. Peace.